So why don't we jump onto the desired state so that
No, but sorry, and we're going to look at the design state, but what we never had a view like that. We always had the view that you would right click somewhere in here and that drop down, that the same as copy text you have today.
So where the drop down was, so you would click on CDIQ, so we'd have the option of that, click on the CDIQ button, and then you'd have a drop down list of all of the apps that would be presented in that drop down. That's what we started on. Right, that's what you remember, Pedro?
Why not right click rather than click on CBIQ then?
Let's go to the desired state, and then we can
Please.
back
Yeah,
into
so
then
yeah,
what options
let's
there,
go.
rather than try to
Yeah.
solve it from the
Yep,
from the
agree.
So I think these guys have spent a lot of time thinking through all of those.
Yes,
those
okay,
options.
okay.
Okay. So this is what we're working through right now. Actually, I'll go over this. I'm going to just bring up another example of this to begin
Okay.
with. But what we're proposing is more of a consolidated panel, which would be something that would extend out from the side of chat. Let me bring this up real quick, just this is a better example. So this top section here, ignore the bottom for right now. But let's say, when they click CVIQ, and again, we can figure out exactly how this is going to look. But you click CVIQ, then this section would pop out, sort of just slide out from the chat panel. What this does, it offers a number of advantages. One is I think the most important one is scalability. So here, we have again the signals that are displayed in this little section at the top. These buttons, whether we have them or not, I think sometimes users may not know that a right click, has a context menu. So here we can just spell it out to them with a push to and then a push to all. Of course, that's up for consideration. But then the bottom piece here, which is slightly different than what we have today, is the scalability part. And this is showing that if we have this panel and this type of approach, then we can start putting in more, kind of portlets, so to speak, into this little panel. One of the feedbacks that we got speaking to different credit salespeople or traders, they were saying that, one thing they like to see quickly is the news. So obviously we can do the push and send these signals to the news, but if we have this panel now, we have a lot more options. So we can start updating a news panel dynamically as they type or as they click signals here, instead of having to actually push it to a separate panel and flip back to there. Now, speaking earlier, if the user wants to adjust, they can just click and drag to make this bigger. Obviously, that's a preference they can set. And then you can see now we have a lot more space for the signals. One thing Gopi showed to us is that these signals can be somewhat long. So in the current design, at the bottom, you don't have much room to view those signals. In this approach, you can expand it to get more space to view the longer NLP signals. We also have the ability to put in, again, that's just news, but the user can choose if we want recommended applications. Today, that portlet is in the control panel, right? But why not be able to recommend applications based on what they're doing in their current day? So, I think one of the things Stuart mentioned was, at 7 to 10 a.m., they might use certain applications, more frequently than they do at 3 to 4. So if we can make it dynamic and start saying, hey, we know this user at 7 to 10 uses these specific applications, now we can put these recommendations directly next to their chat and make it more relevant. They don't have to go back to the CVIQ control panel to see this information. But what this is doing, and this is just an example, I know Gopi had different ideas for potentially showing like a credit NLP section, which provides more options when these signals are generated. I mean, it's just a conceptual idea that we now have space to be more, predictive and be more useful with these portlets that we're putting in front of the user.
And what is the box on the right-hand side on both scenarios there?
So this is just showing that if you click the push to all, we still need a way to choose the applications we want to send these signals to, right? So how we display this, if you push to all, could just be a simple overlay that comes up here, and then you just choose, again, your credit rates or whatever your specific applications are. Or you can right click. So again, this is the IBM version, and this is the push to all. Same menu, just showing that the user can launch it from different.
So in reality, this will be, when the user click on something, it will be shown on the top here.
Yep.
Right. Correct.
Yep.
Sorry,
So but the user basically, this is not a separate window, right? This is pretty much, if it takes right click or takes some action here, this kind of menu will pop up here. I think just showing is being shown here on the side.
Correct.
But in reality,
it's not a different window.
It's not a different window.
It's not different. Just
depending
No,
on the click.
but what do we need? So yes, people like news, but it depends on the person. If it's a flow desk, the feedback is that City Velocity News are too old. I need to look at Bloomberg.
100%.
And they wouldn't care about it. If it's a liquid desk, then they'll say, and especially if they're covering many clients, many industries, like a mid-market, corporate type of stuff, they might be more interested on the news, because then it does, it's not like a very flow. The person who is following day in, day out, euro, dollar, whatever we have is not going to be good enough. Yeah. Unless we have Bloomberg feed straight into which we want. So whatever is here is, it's not only conditions to the time, but also to the trader. This part, why don't you make this customizable in a way? Which one of these lines and boxes you would want to see?
100%. I think that's the idea. It definitely should be configurable. Again, this is just example.
Yes,
but you have the credit user. We obviously should be able to pick what we want.
Yes,
So it's
yes.
worth it
So
to be there.
Potential there is to also have tiles, so you could have multiple things that you could just sort of scroll through. So you have the different, components which are, which ties. So you've got news in there. You could have other pieces that you could just quickly scroll through and just go directly to it. Maybe it's a small RFQ screen or something. It could be a small pricing screen. Something.
No, but you wouldn't be able to do that, because the only component we actually can integrate within here is news, right? We cannot do much more than that. We cannot have an RFQ being shown here. We can show the link to the RFQ component, but not the RFQ per se.
So fair point. Yes, and maybe RFQ is not the good example.
I think what news, research, the stuff you guys
What could be
control, which
possible?
probably would be
Or
easier.
anything web-based could be done, but
Yeah.
not a lot of these apps are
Yeah,
native,
that's true.
so you cannot really bring it here.
What I think you need is links here, but maybe I agree with you,
Yeah.
sorry, to the extent that would be possible. I find that it's going to be probably the second step, which is now we're going to bring a component, and some of these, like the GSM RFQ, is
Yeah.
the size of the screen.
Yeah.
It would require a lot to fit in here.
Yep.
So
if
that's why I
we-
think this needs to be linked.
So if it's similar to on the bottom panel there, you've got on the right-hand side recommended apps, which is essentially links to those apps. So if you want to ignore news and just make the recommended apps the
basically,
main panel,
maybe this becomes
that
here
becomes part of
as
that,
a default.
correct.
To recommend just a link.
No,
to the-
but this wouldn't be, would this be Axis Pest Plant Activity
Yeah.
RFQ as well, or not? You would.
potentially, yeah.
Sure.
But
Because
why do you
those
have this text here? What app one, what is the text?
It's just
timing
for
of putting it.
example stuff. It's just more.
One thing to add here is, it is always going to be like, this is the purely like, when you click here, it will open that component in the CDIQ panel. It will not open here. It will open the CDIQ panel.
Sorry?
So if I click RFQ, if I click RFQ here,
Yeah.
it will open the RFQ in the CDIQ panel.
It will
The
open
CBIQ panel? No, it should have opened the
just the
RFQ component.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, this RFQ, yeah, it will open the RFQ component in the CDIQ panel.
Not
No.
not in the IQ. It's just independently it will open the RFQ component.
No, we were just talking about that, Gopi. It's just, hopefully yes, as a second stage, but definitely not this year. Because how can you would need to re-customize all of these RFQs to fit. Imagine the GSM RFQ on Spirit, or whatever is that stuff that they shown us. That's the size, the width of the screen, remember that. I think it was Vantage or Spirit, but it was huge. And it was atomized and componentized. For us to put that stuff within the slide down, the right-hand side panel, it's gonna be tough.
Yes, I think to Pedro's point, it will definitely be, at least for this year, it's going to be just a link to tell them to the context API, hey, open the RFQ, this is the input, go and open it up
Open a
and
component.
open a component.
Okay, so sorry.
I was just going to say, so would it be better than show in the top panel if we just showed the recommended apps, because that's the one that you want to include in there. So in that top example, you slide out the tray a certain amount, you can see all the recommended apps and you see the signals at the top. You then have the option to slide out further, and then you see what you see at the bottom there, which includes news and the recommended apps. That kind of gives you both options.
So to the point that that's customizable, yes,
Yeah.
but maybe people will say, I don't care about City Velocity News, it's too old.
Yep.
Yeah.
In which case they just wouldn't either slide out that
And
much or
actually,
they
don't say
just-
that about City Velocity. If they
Yeah.
say, if I'm reading any traditional news source, I am wrong.
Yep.
Because what's happening, it's before it hits the news, I should know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's by talking to clients, it's
Yep.
by reading kind of maybe Twitter, I don't know, but
Yeah.
certainly Bloomberg.
Yeah, Maybe the tweet may be more relevant to
Yeah, maybe the tweet, but even that, I think these guys, the tweets are being made on already stuff they know, you see.
Yes, yes.
That's supposed, so releases from governments, releases from
Yeah.
agencies, from regulators, from the companies. That's what I think these guys are tracking. The news they're tracking are not the reporting of the news, are actual news indeed.
Yeah.
Yep.
The government just released which Bloomberg does, isn't it? They just released the kind of employment figures.
Non-farm payroll. Yeah.
And when it hit the news, it's too late.
So,
Yeah.
so kind of agreeing with what Pedro said, right? So basically, right. So this panel, right? Then it becomes so same concept. This is still a panel. It has a signals. It has a recommended tools.
Yeah.
That's how it has.
You
Right?
got
Well, actually, so there are two things, two questions is, how do we distinguish between recommended tools and selected, customized tools they already have? I think that there is a difference
Yeah.
there.
So the difference being recommended tools could be across all of the tools that we integrate, right? So that we register.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between why recommended tools could be something that you didn't even know existed or
Yes.
selected.
Yes.
The drop downs though, whether you select on push to all or push
Yes.
to or within the signal, are your selected tools.
The selected.
So
I think
that's
it
the
might be
difference.
worth making a distinction there
distinction.
between, this is always there. You,
Yeah.
you select it, can always be
Yep.
there.
Yes.
Yep.
And these other ones, on top of that,
Yeah.
why don't you think about this?
Yep.
Now, one guy told me that what would be really helpful in NLP, and you were there ago with Richard, was when they receive a signal like this, but for 10 trades. So a client says, I want to buy this bond, that bond, that bond, that bond, that bond, and you're saying, look, if I can right click and send this stuff, that's the one I need to do many times. If it is just one deal, one trade, it's very easy for me. It's a cash deal, very easy for me just to do it. It's
Okay.
been optimized. So I feel where we're gonna add value here is on the complexity in where there is a lot of retyping, a lot of information. So you need to think through how you will make this context of the discussion in a way able to not be one item. Where this is gonna happen, help is when they have 15 items. Now you don't wanna kind of overcrowd this.
And that's actually where you see how these are darker color.
I see,
So we do want to imply that multi-selection would be available.
I see.
And this gives you more space. So if you do have 15, again, you have the scroll bar. You can select all 15 of those that were hopefully generated by NLP and send those off.
Yeah, but so just to be clear, right? The point I'm making is, whereas that WTI more 17, it might be another WTI more 18, WTI more, and the client is asking for price of 10.
Right.
Or maybe it's not 55, it's 6, well, maybe it's not December here, it's something else. And that's where they say, when I have people request too many things, too many trades or too many prices of things, that's when you would have, rather than me looking at, bond number 1, or bond number 2, or swap, or whatever number 1, number 2, number 3, and they go typing. But what the issue is gonna create is that you're gonna have, say, 10 boxes quite similar to this one, with small digit differences.
So
And
Pedro,
how we would reflect that here.
yes, Pedro, I think that's one part is the UX part which you're saying. Other part is on the receiving side, right? Can those components take 10 signals? at a
No, they
time?
wouldn't, but even if you do one by one,
Okay.
maybe you do one by one. You click here, click there, click here, click there, one by one.
Okay.
But the point I make is not how they're going to be consumed. It's much more
Okay.
how they're going to be displayed here.
Okay.
What
so-
if you have 10 of
Okay.
these items
Mhm.
here?
Okay.
But with just a small difference, and that difference could be anywhere. within
Just a
the
small
set.
difference, or with a difference there, but are they going to need to scroll down through this bar on the right hand side to get the 10 and go one by that? That's going to be a bit of a hassle.
Would they want to select multiple of those little differences, like 17, 18, 19, 20?
Yes.
So they want to do that as well.
They would need to populate. So for instance, the guy might say, hey, give, just a silly example. Given an IBM bond December 17, an IBM bond for July 18, a Apple bond December 17, and they say price all of this for me, and I'm going to pick which one is the best price for me. And that's where they need to get in here, send it there, one by one. And they might need to do one by one again.
Mm-hmm.
But the challenge we will have on that scenario is how do you display all those 10 signals here?
So the
If you
signals
are
are still going to
highlighting the
be.
chat is easy,
Yeah.
but
The
if
signals
you
are still being generated, so they're still being pulled. So the assumption is that they'll be derived from NLP, right? So somebody's talking to it, or they'll send those signals, and NLP will extract that and say, okay, these are things that they've talked
Yeah.
to. So then, because of the limited space, if that's in that very specific use case, wondering if there's a select multiple option, right? There's a little.
Well, maybe you show
icon or
it on the
something.
chat. Why don't you show on the chat what's being a signal? What could be a signal?
Meaning highlight, underline in the.
Underline on the chat.
So that's what we were talking to earlier, right? To say, okay, if that's the case, if you do the underline on the chat, then in a table that gets sent, do we then underline each one of those as distinct signals? You still have to select multiple in some
Yeah,
way,
how
right?
do you select multiple from those?
Because even if they're all.
Yeah, but you
highlighted-
wouldn't do all the same. At least now, you wouldn't do all of them at the same time. You would do one by one.
You will have to have the extensibility, right? So, going back with the thing, even if you take an NLP as an example, we are likely to have different flavors of NLP. Predicators are going to have their own NLP, agents are going to have their own, and effects are going to have their own, and so on. So we got to have a mapping that says, if it is effect-based person, we got to have a choice to say, I need to use this NLP flavor to do the analysis. That's one. That's one point which I was speaking about with Ryan and Francis. The second thing which we need to do is that getting a signal where we're saying IBM or Cisco or Apple is just giving a ticket, which is good for now, but long term, your signal will be like a huge paragraph which will have like 10 different data objects in it. So from the 10 different data objects, you should be able to book 10 RFQs
Yes.
easily.
Well, I think that a long term, they can have 10 RFQs screen maybe simultaneously, but that's not day one. So look, sorry, just conscious of time, we still maybe have a couple minutes, but can I just suggest for the meeting Sandeep then? What I would suggest, guys, and you have more experience on this than I, but knowing he's coming from probably a month or two ago, if you do as an example what is that we are suggesting it's going to happen, rather than pros and cons or things like the previous page.
Yeah.
But if you were to show, look, the chat is here, the guy's going to click here, this stuff is going to slide to the right, and you're going to see this and that.
Recommended,
I wouldn't
yeah.
spend much time on showing the NLP stuff because we definitely know it's not going to be there in June, July. Even though we need to plan it,
Yep.
he's going to get distracted by that. I would suggest whatever we show here is somehow the June version.
Yeah.
Of
So
what we're
Pedro,
gonna have.
again, maybe I'm not overcoming, but I think I'm anticipating for the June version, we'll have some NLP in place.
Not to this level.
Not to that level, agree.
Yeah.
Not to that level, yes. That's not like.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we can put the signals from the NLP,
Yes.
but we're not going to be able to distinguish this stuff.
Agree. Maybe we take out that complex bond and put
Yeah.
something more simpler.
Yeah.
So just keep it IBM,
Just have a country
Cisco.
or two in there, like Russia.
Like what, like Russia, country, whatever we can figure it out, right? Something
Is
simpler.
there anything that is already going to deep link into Allegra's tools? If we can use an example for deep link.
Yeah,
So-
all the tickers will deep link into all of Allegra's tools because ticker she will determine, even if you're a credit user, what's the most common credit instrument that you've used for, say, IBM or that's.
So let's do that.
you
So
could do
if you show, if you show that, and then you click on Apple, and app one is going to be,
Price
curve.
chart, could be a
Yeah.
curve, could
Yeah.
be, yeah.
then I would even open the curve as a component there. Just I would do as if it's the person using it,
Okay.
just to.
So we won't have the complex signals, we're just gonna show the simple signals.
Well,
We'll have
let's
the
show
drive.
June. Sorry, June. I don't think we're going to have complex signals. in
Yes,
June.
agree. I'm totally.
If we are, great. Let's show.
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Let's keep the simple signals. Yes, for the June.
No,
Sorry, go.
I just have one comment there, right? So, because the design we pick now really influences how we're going to deliver the complex signals when it eventually comes, right? So, if you pick this design and we go with this approach, then we eventually have to integrate the complex signals. It will seriously limit our ability to go with it. So, I think we should factor in the signals.
No. Let's not show. Okay, but let's as we do the first demo. I agree with you, Gopi, but I think as the team here has experienced Sandeep, flexibility is number one on whatever you're doing for Sandeep. So you
Yeah.
need to be able to go back and redo the whole stuff. So we need to think ahead, Gopi, but regardless, he will change this stuff to whatever is appropriate to the time and redo it. So I think flexibility, as we don't know where it's going to land and by when, having the flexibility and the ability to change it, as you said, Gopi, is important, more important than having it already decided now. But if you want to do as I think we can show the complex stuff, but at the first one, let's not scare him off with. Let's show.
Okay.
This is the June version. By the way, longer term, this is how it's going to be.
Okay.
But let's start June. He's very focused on June.
Yeah.
People will click on CVIQ. They're going to see a bunch of links here. They're going to see some stuff here. And they click on. I wouldn't even show. They click on RFQ then, and it's going to open this stuff already with Russia or whatever. And or they click on Apple and then they click on Curve. It's going to open this stuff.
Okay. So we'll just keep it. So we'll take out news from that panel. We'll just have recommended applications as the listed links essentially, right?
Well,
But you want to keep
I
news
feel
in
news
there?
is the only one where we can have it as this part of this lighting panel, isn't
Okay.
it?
So,
Is that right?
but we can demonstrate it that way to
Can
say.
you have research? You can have research and commentary. Can
That
you?
is correct.
True, yeah. So you can make
But
that.
can we make that customizable or not?
We can make anything, right? I mean,
So
we
so
have
let's
to
do
find
first
this.
the links. What he had agreed before is
Yep.
this.
Yes.
Let's have the links there, and then maybe we can do now if the user wants.
But sorry, when you say links, you're talking about these links that we're showing as a drop down within the signals,
That's a drop down.
or is just make sure we're clear so that these guys have clear direction as well. So when we talk about the links, are you talking about these links
Yes.
to the apps versus the way we're showing?
No,
So
there's-
we're going to show these as the actual named apps, right? So it could say Axes, it could say.
No, I think we need to show the customizable links
Mhm.
and the recommended links.
Yep. So
Yep.
these are the
Customizable
customizable links,
ones.
which will be available in the drop down. So you're fine with that.
Sorry, which drop down?
So the point is, if you click on any of these signals, you could push signal. Let's say you click on IBM. When you click on IBM, you see this drop down come here as a box, as a drop down overlay.
Drop
That's
down
it,
menu,
it's
correct.
No, but no, that's not really helpful because you have to click here,
Yep.
then click here, then click here.
And,
That's a bit of a.
And also one case is initially. So CVIQ, that would extend out, but the idea being that if the user decides to keep it there, it's going to stay there.
Okay.
So it will just be an initial click
Yeah,
if the
yeah.
user wants it to be that.
No, why don't you get, this is not a lot, why don't you squeeze this here somewhere? Even if you do kind of a bunch of buttons here.
I think that's something that Gopi was talking about too, like having less clicks.
So
And that's
basically what I
in
said,
in
right,
another.
having his preferred tool shown right there.
Yeah.
Beside the recommended tool, that's what
Correct.
Pedro is saying, right?
Correct.
So
So
basically
that's fine.
a direct link to his preferred tool also somewhere available.
But the clicking on the link, is it passing any context to these?
Yes.
So the context then becomes, if you've got multiple signals and you just have the links, how are you tying the connection of the link to the specific
Well,
signal?
it depends what we're gonna have available
Yeah.
in June.
Yep.
But so far, the June model, we're gonna have client name and sales ID available, nothing else.
But-
For this is gonna be only client name and sales ID,
Okay, but once
nothing
we-
else.
Not for the news or research and commentary, right? So that will have more relevant to
We will
the
have these signals.
signals part of
Because
it.
that's part of our April,
So definitely for the phase 1 June, we'll have at least for the news.
Oh, so maybe, that's, sorry, I don't have an answer. But the point
Yeah,
being,
yeah.
for June, what's expected that these 6 things here,
Okay,
they only gonna have 2 signals which are not gonna vary whatever you do on the chat. To the
Okay.
point you're chatting to the same company or the same person.
okay, so I would
We
say.
need to think ahead, and I think like suggesting as it comes later on, and then you have this kind of stuff, which one, you wanna do this trade or this trade, and then you click here and there. But I think that's
Okay.
phase 2 really.
so
That's-
phase 1, rather than what we had on the first slide, which is overlaying the chat, which has its problem because it hides the chat, and that's never a
Yeah.
good thing, right?
yeah.
So the very first phase 1 is essentially this panel, simply you've got the client name, you potentially don't even have signals at that stage, right? And you just have the listed apps as a panel that sits down.
Well, you see, the signals are related to the recommended apps.
Yep.
And then you have the custom, so far, later on it's gonna change.
Yep.
But now, the customizable apps are independent. Maybe that's the distinction you need to make there. Signals are related to this, and let's say you have here customized, and then you put this
So
item.
we're going to phase 2 now, right? So when we talk about signals, that's
No, the signals on phase one are only related to these two, right?
Right.
So maybe what you do is signals
Okay. Okay.
and recommended,
Okay.
and you have independent. Maybe you can put on the top, you can put vertically or whatever put it horizontally. The preferred apps, the preferred selected.
That means
by-
somebody would still have to select a signal first, and then
No.
click on it.
Not for phase one. Sorry, to open which tool? The customized or the
Well,
recommended?
if they wanted to, so if there's like an RFQ button
Correct.
that you can see,
Yeah.
we still have to know which Cisco, Apple, or IBM.
Not for phase one.
Not for phase- Or
For
maybe,
phase one is just the client name and the sales ID. We won't have anything.
Okay, okay.
so maybe a totally different way of doing this could be, right, but again, let's listen me out, right? So let's say, right, instead of having signal is there in the find, right? Let's say we display the list of apps what Pedro is saying, right, these are my preferred tools, right? And let's say if
Okay.
tools happens to be news, clicking on news, right, we show the relevant signal which you want to send it to the news. Clicking, so basically I'm totally reverting. App being the starting point,
Yeah, that maybe is it. Sorry, I'll need to go back.
and things for access, we don't have to do
Yeah.
anything because it's directly tied to the,
Yeah.
to the.
I think that's on the preferred versus recommended. You guys need to think through.
Okay,
how-
okay.
Sorry, I need to go. So
Okay.
I'm available the rest of the day or tomorrow anytime.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can we please touch base take a look and have
Yeah,
another
Yeah,
look
tomorrow,
before we-
tomorrow,
Yeah.
yep,
Good,
yep.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
This is also a worst case scenario because you have credit and rates. Somebody's probably only going to be credit.
So let's reverse it, right? So I think, see, his point is, he wants easy access to the apps available. I think that's where he's going, right? And to Hamad's point, how do we link signals to the
Right,
app?
correct,
Right?
correct.
So let's say if you go back to the model of where we have these apps available.
Yeah.
If the app happens to be RFQ, click opens RFQ.
Yeah.
If app happens to be, let's say, news,
Yeah.
you click on it, right?
And then you
We
have
show the
options.
list of signals and user pass the signal from there. So instead
Okay.
of starting from the signal going to the
Yeah.
app, we're saying
Start
that
with
we
the
can
app,
start
yeah.
from the app. And we can also, other thing also from here, you can click
Yeah.
and invoke it, so
Yeah,
that's become
yeah,
secondary
yeah,
feature.
yeah, agreed.
So this way, it becomes one click for
Yeah.
almost all the actions.
Yeah.
So I think,
We're still suggesting having the signals, right?
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
signals will still want to show
Signal is
because we
still
want
there.
to visibly show that signal
Yeah.
being caught. Sorry guys on the phone, Ryan's scribbling on the whiteboard here.
so we got signals.
Now, but we're saying we're just gonna put, so we have the enable tool strip, remember in the control panel?
Yes.
So do we wanna just put that across?
Yes, enable tools, and then is a strip or so
Or
basically,
vertical list.
or vertical. Enable tools become second, and the recommended tools become at the bottom, almost like.
Okay.
So we almost have, so we could do the strip, remember the current design that we have,
Yeah.
right? And
Oh,
then,
maybe from IQ, the
From the
control
IQ
panel?
panel, yeah.
we need to be careful, it's gonna be, we gotta like lay this out in a way that this applies to this up here.
So like,
It
yeah,
can
let's
be a little
go.
bit confusing.
Yeah,
So, I don't know, we need to think it through, but we're saying that this is essentially the key sending off component, and
Yes.
then we have, we want recommended.
recommended tools.
So we gotta make sure, like, we do dynamic recommendations based on the signals that are coming in, right? This is
Yeah.
where today it's static.
Yeah,
I was doing this for an example, showing in the future that it could be more dynamic.
yeah, I think
Let's
recommended.
just be careful, we
Yeah.
Yeah.
But whatever, let's say we have recommended.
Recommended tool. So I would say it's still the same concept going back to the IQ panel.
Yeah.
We put the IQ panel this way,
Yeah.
with one change what we're doing maybe is with the one click from the enabled tools to go.
Yeah.
Only show,
Yeah.
Show the
So you still have
signals that
report
you're
lists.
selecting within
So you
that.
still have your
Within
report
that.
list, so these enable when you click, it still go to here, but then it would also go out. So this is just being the control and to, okay.
yeah, even news, let's ignore the news, fact that we own the news, right, let's ignore that, right? News also become another thing which pops up here. So keep everything at the same level, right?
Yeah.
Let's,
We can keep pushing for that, I don't know, I get his point, but it's,
yeah, the-
anyway.
right?
So that's going to be longer than the chat panel. I mean, in
Wider.
height.
No, if the news is not there, then it may not be longer than it's.
Yeah, we might have enough, but we can still make it scroll, but whatever.
Yeah,
that
the
can
other
still
thing
be
is,
shown
so,
there.
yeah, if we keep this as more of a list type view rather than going along, unless it's
But then we're just gonna waste us, I don't know, we
Well,
need
I
to think
think-
about it.
The issue
There's
is,
al-
we should be able to make this scrollable, but we don't want to take up too much of their screen page, because for each chat window, the wider it is, the more it's going to encroach on other things that they're probably looking at, right? So keeping it tighter but making it scrollable, that they could go down to like the recommended apps, or they could go down to their title tools.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
We can play with it. Somehow we just have to make sure that this is
Yeah.
very clear that this is affected, that this relates to this. You know what I mean, Francis? Like
Yes, I
somehow
know.
in UI we're gonna have to figure that out.
Yeah,
But
I
that's-
think
that's
your
Ahmed's
model
point,
is correct, right? I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think to Ahmed's point on how you select though, these signals are basically just telling you signals are being trapped, right? We're catching signals.
So you're
When
not
you
clicking
select
on
an app,
those. Right.
You have to select what signal you want that app to push through. So selecting the app.
Well,
So you have two choices, right?
So he's saying by default, obviously BlackRock is going to be sent when you click one of these.
Yes, that's
But we're
happening.
just saying you can choose this, and let's say we can still send this to the apps, right?
Yeah.
Whatever, it's not a big deal. The background is still sent, and news can still be put in here. So when you choose this, it's sent.
We can do that.
I don't know,
So I think to his point, right, basically, here is an RFQ, click on RFQ, the RFQ opens up, no other action, right?
Right.
And we know that, okay, it's BlackRock, so they're not select, right? If it happens to be news, then we give an option because.
So maybe a right click to,
Yeah, right click
and then
as-
you have choices between
Option
IBM
selection,
and
otherwise
Apple.
it just sends all.
Otherwise sends all, maybe, the default is sends all basically.
So maybe this.
So news is an all 5 signals, last 5 signals, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I don't know. So maybe this even goes up underneath BlackRock. I don't know, just to make it clear. That
Yeah, that's true, because-
BlackRock and we can call this push to tool or something. BlackRock
Okay.
push to tool. I don't know. And
So
then,
to his point, if somebody are constantly using RFQ,
Yeah.
it becomes an easy way for him to invoke the RFQ rather than.
Okay.
I think that's.
I got it.
I get his point. I mean, yeah, this is more future state. I get his point. Fine, let's play with it. But it's still. It seems like he's not against that.
No,
which
he's
I
not
think
against
is the
it.
big
No,
thing.
that's
So
I think he's totally.
as long as we can sell them on this, then
Yes.
we can do whatever we want.
Yes,
We can
yes.
start.
And I think he was not convinced the idea of going from signal to the app.
Yeah.
He wants to go directly to the app.
App
So I think we basically solved the problem of us trying to link it.
Yeah.
So there's still an option, right? We understand, okay, you can still click on signal and say send it to some app. That
Yeah.
part is there. On the other hand, tools are readily available
Yeah.
if single click if you want.
Yeah, and then that very initial phase would be just BlackRock. It'll say
Yeah.
entitled tools. That's basically what you have because maybe signals
Okay,
are
and
coming.
then the signals below, we just have the context menu.
And then
we
we
want
have
to send it
context,
all.
In fact, this will satisfy everybody.
Yeah.
Right, in some ways, right?
Yeah.
People cannot say that, okay, I have to click here and here to do that, right?
Yeah. My only worry with Sandeep is he was sensitive to even a little bit of a single panel coming in underneath.
Uh-huh.
So I think having too wide a panel, he's going to start to get concerned
No,
about
no,
that. So, as
so
long as
also,
that's-
let's take out the news part or something.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
keep it this
keep
one.
that and try to keep it
Yeah.
relatively tight.
Little bit tight,
Um,
yes, I hear what you're
So
saying.
that at least it's but it can be slide outs to say, well, if people aren't interested, they'll still see something, maybe a little label or something that just shows you signals that are coming through, and it sort of pops up, and it gives them the option to slide out, and then they can then do whatever they want in there, clicking on tools,
Yeah.
signals, links.